So everybody, here we have it, the brand new Satin Black Apple Watch Ultra 2 alongside that brand new Milanese loop band, which I absolutely love. And for better or worse, I am fully addicted to wearing my Apple Watch, even all the way back to the Series 0 Apple Watch. But what I want to do in this video is give you guys my overall review of course, the new colorway and the new band, but also talk about the Ultra 2 because that's been out for an entire year, talk about that hardware, and then finally talk about WatchOS 11 and how it works alongside the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and how it fits into my Apple ecosystem. So this is my full encompassing review. Let's get into it. So before we get started, if you just want the TLDR on whether to get a Series 10 or to get yourself an Ultra 2, the only real difference is going to be obviously the form factor. You have to like what you're getting from a visual standpoint, either the more rugged, kind of bigger look, or the more sleek, more slender look of the Series 10. And then in terms of just the specs and features, you get a dual band GPS on the Ultra 2, which gives you a more precise location tracking when it comes from a GPS standpoint. You also get 3000 nit brightness screen when it comes to peak brightness on the Ultra 2 versus 2000 nits of brightness on the Series 10, so giving you a 50% increase in overall ultimate brightness. And then lastly, it's going to be battery life, right? You get 36 hours of normal everyday use on the Ultra 2, and then up to 72 hours in that low power mode, versus on the Series 10, you get pretty much half of that, which is 18 hours of normal use and 36 hours in low power mode. The Series 10 does have faster charging with 30-minute fast charging from 0 to 80%, although it's been hard to test that, versus 1 hour charging to go from 0 to 80% on the Ultra 2, so bigger battery, slower charging, or smaller battery, faster charging. But those are the only real differences between the two, so figure out which one you like from a look standpoint, and then decide from a spec standpoint what you're getting yourself into. So now let's talk about that satin black color of the new Ultra 2, because again, this is the same exact watch that was released last year, just in a different colorway, which does make it feel new. But then what is new about this whole setup is that Milanese loop that Apple released alongside this Apple Watch Ultra 2 in that black colorway. So the band itself is actually extremely well made. It is a $100 surcharge if you do want to add it to your cart when buying the Satin Black Ultra 2, so keep that in mind. It's not going to be $800, it'll be $900 in total if you add this watch band, but I do think it's well worth it because it's a band that you can dress up, dress down, you can use it in all types of terrains, in all types of use cases. Like in the week that I've had this band, I've taken it to the gym, I've taken it into the water, I've used it in the shower, I've been able to dress it up, dress it down, and I have not changed this band at all since getting it about a week ago. And the surprising thing about this band is that it's much lighter than what I initially expected. When I picked it up, I thought it was going to be like some heavy chainmail because that's what it looks like, but it's extremely light, and I think that's why it works so well in all these different scenarios. And then in terms of the clamp itself, this is a new clamp. It does take about a day or two to get used to it, but once you do get used to it, then it's very easy to clamp on and off. Basically, it's a two-clamp mechanism where you do clamp it on and off wherever you see fit, but then also the part that it clamps onto does move up and down the band in order to size it correctly for your wrist. And the way that this is done, I think it's very genius. It's a little bit of a clamp that opens up, you slide it up and down on the band itself, then you lock it into place, and then you're able to actually clasp it together when you are ready to go in order to actually close the watch. So that is a Milanese loop band. I like the look, I like the form factor, and it's going to be probably my main band unless I go to, let's say, like a Nomad band or a rubber band or something like that. And then one of the big questions on the Apple Watch Ultra in this black satin colorway is the durability. Obviously, I've only had it for about a week or so, but I've already knocked this thing around. I've already hit walls. If anything, it's more durable than the walls in my house. Like for instance, I ran into the corner of my wall with the Apple Watch Ultra, and I looked at my Ultra, and it took a little chunk off of the white wall and on the Apple Watch Ultra, and I kind of just brushed it off, and my Apple Watch Ultra was totally fine from a colorway perspective. So I don't think it'll chip. Again, I'll probably revisit this in a 6-month time frame or a year time frame to see how it lasts over time. But after about a week, it seems durable enough for me to be happy with this black colorway. And now just for reference sake, I was upgrading from an Ultra 1, so this is technically a new watch to me because my Ultra 1 was 2 years old, and there were some new features or at least new kind of specifications that came with the Ultra 2 last year. First and foremost being that 3000 nit of brightness versus the 2000 nits that the Ultra 1 had. So I am seeing some brighter screens overall, especially out in the middle of the day because we are transitioning from summer to fall. But the sun is still very bright during the middle of the day, and I don't have any issues whatsoever when I am looking at my screen itself. So that is something to take into consideration if you are thinking about going from an Ultra 1 to an Ultra 2. And then secondly, it is that double tap gesture, which I'll be totally honest, after about a week of having it, I find myself kind of forcing myself to try to use it versus it being a feature that I use frequently. The only real use case that I have for the Ultra 2 kind of double tap gesture as of right now is snapping a photo for the shutter when I have my other hand taken up. So I like to use my Apple Watch Ultra, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in the ecosystem section, but I like to use my Apple Watch as a viewfinder for my iPhone camera to make sure that I'm in frame, or to make sure that whatever product I'm taking a picture of or a video of is also in frame, and also to start and stop any video recording that I'm doing. So being able to then double tap to initiate a photo or pause a video is relatively helpful, but again, I'm not using it often enough where I'm going to be missing it if for some reason it was taken away. So for those people that do use the hand gestures, please leave some comments down below of what you use them for. I know you can use it for scrolling, for selecting, for moving stuff around in applications, but again, for the most part, that hand gesture feature shouldn't be something to sway you to upgrade you from an Ultra 1 to Ultra 2, so you're definitely not missing out on much of anything, in my opinion. Another thing that I do want to talk about when it comes to the Apple Watch Ultra specifically has to do with battery life and just overall longevity of the device. Like I mentioned, I had an Ultra 1 before this. I had it for 2 years. I wore it every single day like clockwork. Even if I were to go out to a fancy dinner, I would forego wearing a nicer watch just because I wanted to make sure I had my Apple Watch Ultra on. And battery life has always been amazing, even while running things like WatchOS 11 beta when it was in beta. So if you're looking for the best battery life in an Apple smartwatch, then you're gonna have to go with the Apple Watch Ultra 2 or the Apple Watch Ultra 1. It is rated for 36 hours of heavy usage or normal day-to-day use, and up to 72 hours of that low power mode usage, which I do tend to turn off and on occasion. Like if you really want to, you can get 2-3 days out of this watch, no problem, if you're using it with light use. Now again, if you do use it for working out, if you use it as a viewfinder and use it for things that are a little bit more intensive, that battery starts to diminish relatively quickly. But even in a 2-day span where I'm using it normally throughout the day as just an everyday watch, but I do maybe an hour and a half workout for each of those days, I'm still ending that second day with enough battery life to get me through the night and be able to sleep track. So something to take into consideration. If you want the best battery life in an Apple smartwatch, the Apple Watch Ultra will be your only choice, and it is the best choice. And then another separating factor will be that dual band GPS, which I do like to have, especially if you're in an area that is very crowded. So if you're in New York City or San Francisco or Miami and you like to work out and run around those areas that are a lot more tight, and also with a lot of cellular band data going around where everybody's using 5G and LTE and their own GPS trackers, this dual band GPS makes it so it's a lot more accurate when you are around those areas. And same thing goes with those less populated areas and those more rural areas where everything is super spread out and wide open that hasn't really been kind of hiked or navigated too often. That dual band GPS will help with pinpointing precise locations along those routes. So I do think the dual band GPS is an added benefit of the Apple Watch Ultra, so if you do want to have the most precise GPS tracking on a smartwatch in the Apple ecosystem, that's another reason why the Ultra is a better purchase than any other of the Apple Watches. And now let's get into WatchOS 11 a little bit, because there are 2 big updates to WatchOS 11, and I'll put a list of the supported devices on the screen right now. I believe you have to have an Apple Watch Series 6 or newer, and then of course any of the Apple Watch Ultras. But WatchOS 11 brought 2 new features that for me personally are amazing, or they're vital, and excuse the pun. But the first one has to be the Vitals application. So I'm somebody that likes to gamify their health and their metrics and their health data, and again, maybe I look at it too often, and that's a conversation for a different time. But now with the Vitals application, it kind of reduces the anxiety and the health anxiety of constantly looking at your Apple Health Kit data, because what I would do every now and then is maybe after a workout or after a long week of working out, I would go into my Apple Health data, look at all the metrics, see how I'm trending, see what's up, see what's down, see what I can do to improve and gamify myself a little bit more. But now with the Vitals application, it takes 4 or 5 metrics, depending if you still have the O2 sensor in your Apple Watch, and it'll basically give you an overall breakdown of how you've been doing that day from those 4 or 5 main metrics. So basically it distills all that information and all that data into 4 or 5 metrics to let you know that you are pretty much on par with everything that needs to be, and you're relatively healthy for that day, that week, that month, or that year. So the Vitals app is just a glanceable view at how you're doing from an overall health standpoint. And I love being able to just glance at it, making sure that I'm kind of in the middle, that I have no outliers, and then also knowing that if I do go out, maybe have a couple drinks or stay up late and things like that, then it's going to mess up with my vitals, and maybe I'll have outliers when it comes to not enough sleep, or maybe my resting heart rate at night is a little bit higher than usual, and then being able to then kind of self-regulate and correct on that matter very quickly with just one glanceable look. So I do like the Vitals application, and I do highly recommend you guys jumping on there. And then the second one is going to have to be training load. Training load is kind of Apple's answer to Whoop, or intensity training, or measuring and gamifying and giving yourself a metric as to how hard you're working out and what that means for your body. So Apple, of course, has kind of gotten itself into this fitness realm, and I love Apple's fitness programs and their rings and being able to kind of track yourself over time. Like, I have years and years of fitness data because of the Apple Watch and the ones that I've been wearing over the past years. But now having something like training load helps you with auto-regulation of how hard you should work out, or if you should take a step back and maybe take an off day or a rest day, or just not be as intense that day. Basically what it does is after every single workout, it'll give you a score between 0 and 10 of how hard it was for that workout. And it takes different metrics into account, like your heart rate, your intensity, how fast you're moving, how much weight you're lifting, what applications you're using. And it'll give you this number where maybe if you score a 7 or 8, that means you're training pretty intensely. Or maybe if you got a 2 or a 3, that means maybe your intensity was a little bit on the lower side. And then it'll tell you after that workout, like, hey, maybe on the next workout you should take it a little easy, or hey, maybe on the next workout you do have the ability to push yourself a little bit more because you didn't do as much the day before. I love the actual use cases of the training load application and training load integration into the Apple Watch, so I highly recommend giving that aspect a shot if you have WatchOS 11 installed on your Apple Watch. And then I do briefly want to talk about the ecosystem features. Again, there's nothing like having the Apple ecosystem inside of your Apple Watch at all times, right? From being able to use your Apple Watch as a viewfinder, which you see right here, and that's probably my most used utility, being able to use it to find your iPhone if it's maybe lost in some sort of pocket or lost on your couch, being able to receive all your notifications and your text messages and being in sync with your Apple ecosystem, or being able to unlock your Mac because you do have an unlocked Apple Watch on, so you don't have to type in a password or use Touch ID. All things that make your life a little bit more efficient using the Apple Watch is kind of like the centerpiece alongside your iPhone to really control your entire Apple ecosystem. Like the other day, I was using my Apple Watch Ultra as a remote for my Apple TV 4K because my iPhone wasn't near me, so I couldn't use that Apple remote, and then the physical Apple remote was also nowhere to be found, so I was able to just use my Apple Watch as a remote for my Apple TV 4K. But again, that's just one of the many use cases of using the Apple Watch inside the Apple ecosystem. And now finally, let's talk about price here. So of course, MSRP or retail from Apple, it is $800 for either the regular titanium or the new satin black version of the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Like I mentioned, if you do want to add the Milanese loop from Apple, it is an additional $100, so you're looking at $900 for this package right here. But if you go on Amazon right now, I believe the regular Ultra 2 in titanium is $689 on Amazon, and even the new satin black one is $50 off at $749. Now again, that's with the traditional bands. I don't know what it looks like for the Milanese bands on Amazon, but being able to get even just a regular Ultra 2 at $689, I think is a great deal. Because again, one thing additional to take into consideration is that these all have data, so there is no quote-unquote upcharge for getting an Apple Watch with data built into it. So keep that in mind that every single Apple Watch will come ready to go with data enabled. You just have to add it to your current plan. So who is this Apple Watch Ultra 2 for, and who should upgrade to it from where, right? So if you're an Apple Watch just series user and you don't want to get to the big bulky one, then of course avoid this Apple Watch Ultra. But if you already have an Apple Watch Ultra 1 and you're okay missing out on the color of the satin black, then you're totally fine. Like my Apple Watch Ultra 1 was still more than good enough to handle everything and have every single feature. And if anything, it still had the O2 sensor, so it gave me even more data. The only reason I personally upgraded is because I wanted the different colorway and I wanted to try out this Milanese loop band. But again, if you just want the new Milanese loop, you can go out and buy yourself that separately from Apple and then attach it to your Apple Watch Ultra 1. So if you have an Apple Watch Ultra 1, I'd say don't upgrade unless you really want the black color. And then if you do have an older Apple Watch, maybe Series 6 or Series 7, and you just want to go full tilt on both a battery life perspective, on a ruggedness perspective, and then also get all the latest and greatest when it comes to fitness and health and tracking and going on those extreme side of sports, then maybe the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is something for you to consider. But let me know in the comment down below what you think. Did you get the Apple Watch Ultra 2? Are you using the satin black version? Did you upgrade from the regular Ultra 2 to the Ultra 2 in that black colorway? Let me know in the comment down below. Always very curious to know what you're thinking about when it comes to these types of products, because again, $900 for a watch is not cheap. But that'll do it, everybody. If you did make it to the end of this video, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end, and let me know which Apple Watch you currently have and which one you're rocking. And finally, if you want to watch more videos like this one, YouTube thinks you're gonna like this video right here, and I think you're gonna like this video down here. But until next time, I'm Fernando. Peace, everybody.